Hello guys, Monday morning, the start of what could be a very big week for Arsenal. Declan Rice, that's the deal everyone's talking about. I had people coming up to me over the weekend saying, is it going to get done? Is it going to get done? You can relax, it is going to get done. An agreement is getting closer and closer. I believe at this point we're going to be days, if not perhaps even a question of hours really, from that agreement being finalised. And then it's about the medical. Personal terms not expected to be an issue. I know that the Rice family have some personal vacation time planned during this period. Do you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if he put that on hold or came back from it in order to complete that medical. I just think this is a move that he's wanted for such a long time. If he's presented with the chance to get it done, get the contract signed, become an Arsenal player, I think he'll take that. I think he'll want it sorted as soon as humanly possible. And the same will be true for Timber, who's absolutely convinced about his move to Arsenal. Ajax and Arsenal, again, dealing with kind of the final stages of the negotiations there. What a fantastic start to the window that would be for Arsenal to get Havertz, Rice and Timber, three of their big targets over the line. Would put them in a really strong position, probably an unrivaled position in the Premier League. Liverpool look like they've done some good early business, but apart from that, I think Arsenal really are the sort of standout team in terms of what they've done to augment their squad. And when you look at where they were last season and where they'll be hopefully next, it augurs very well. Thank you for watching as ever, guys. It's been a great week last week for me in terms of subscribers, likes, comments, all of that. It helps so much. Thank you. Keep at it. Keep sharing. Keep liking. Keep subscribing. Actually, if you're subscribed, just stay subscribed. Don't unsubscribe and subscribe again. That's really going to screw the numbers. But yeah, do share the videos. Especially important now that Twitter appears to have gone absolutely mental. I'm trying something different with the background today. Either you'll be thinking, wow, James has learnt to use green screen technology, or why has James got a blue screen standing behind him? We'll find out when the finished product comes out. Today we're going to be talking about the attack. We started these squad building videos going position by position, and basically what happened is that, the Declan Rice stuff took over. We did a lot of chat last week about that deals more generically in the window, but do go back and check out the series. I think it's interesting. We've spoken about goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, and now we're going to talk about the attack, right? Which is a really, it's one of the exciting ones. But actually, in terms of our business, I'm not convinced it will be the most active, but I still think there's a lot of intrigue there, and I'm going to go into that now. We're going to talk about it as a front three. I think it is going to be the same kind of shape front three that we saw last season. Saka on one flank, Martinelli on another, Gabriel Jesus ostensibly as the starting striker. I don't think anyone's got any qualms with that really, but where it becomes really interesting is what do we have beyond that? We spoke last season about the need to have rotation options, players who could come off the bench and make a difference. Arsenal added one of those in January, in Leandro Trossard, and I think his impact was sensational. We tried to spend £100 million on Mudryk, but we couldn't have hoped for a better impact from him than we got from Trossard. In terms of his creativity, he was outstanding. Goals, he might have had a couple more, but he was pretty unlucky, beaten by the width of the woodwork, stopped from getting a couple of extra goals there. Whether playing on the left or through the middle, I thought he was excellent and showed kind of a natural intuition for the kind of football Arteta wants to play. Maybe no surprise given his history, given the fact he's worked extensively with Albert Stuivenberg in Belgium. So, there is a kind of shared language there. But I think he's great on the left, great through the middle, not so great on the right. So what have we got on the right? Well, it looks like we've got Reiss Nelson. But again, this is a bit curious because Reiss Nelson's contract expired over the weekend and he's away on holiday. As far as I understand, at the time of speaking, I don't think he's yet signed his new one. Now, the expectation from everyone inside Arsenal, from Reiss Nelson, from his camp, is that he will go on and do that. But it is just an unusual, atypical situation. I mean, David De Gea is in a bit of a similar boat at United, but there's a bit more uncertainty there. It looks like United are trying to replace him effectively and are saying, basically it sounds like they're trying to keep their options open. They're going to string him along, see if they can get a replacement. If not, they might, give De Gea a contract. Arsenal want Reiss Nelson, and there just seems to be a kind of agreement or a pact of trust that says, he is going to sign this contract. I mean, maybe Arsenal feel confident because they know they're in a strong position. I think a lot of people from external sources wouldn't have necessarily anticipated Nelson getting that contract. They might think, well, A long-term contract for Reece Nelson at Arsenal, that's a pretty good offer. And it sounds like it's a hefty salary too. So maybe Arsenal are just very confident that it's going to be a deal that suits Nelson that he takes. How do we feel about that though? Nelson had a great moment, of course, against Bournemouth last season. I think he had some other encouraging moments off the subs bench. I think he showed he can make an impact in games. But how do we feel about him as a starter? If Bukayo Saka's got an injury on the right-hand side, are we comfortable throwing him in to a Champions League game? Well, we'll come back to that because there are other options in that front three to discuss. And one is Gabriel Jesus playing occasionally on the right-hand side. I would love to see that at times this season. I just think that, he was playing in that position for Manchester City, won a Premier League title playing that position, was a very effective player for them. We've seen glimpses of what he could do. I remember the last home game of the season against Wolves, getting to the byline, lifting a great cross for Granit Xhaka, who's no longer there, but Kai Havertz isn't bad in the area either. That might be a nice combination to look at. I think Jesus can play all across the front three, and I feel like maybe after 12 months starting consistently at centre-forward, Arsenal can afford to relax a bit more about where he plays, and maybe Jesus will be a bit more relaxed about where he plays. I'm not underestimating his quality as a centre-forward. I think he was brilliant, and I think he was transformative to this attack, and I think he helped Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, and so many more, helped Xhaka last season to become the threat that they did. But I just think when you've got a player who's that versatile, who's that happy in areas outside the penalty box, that comfortable, that able, you should look to use that. And if it allows you to rotate and rest Bukayo Saka once in a while, well, that would be a bonus. So that's one thing to consider. And then if you do that with Jesus, what are your other options at centre forward? Well, Kai Havertz is one. We expect him to be used in midfield as the kind of left-sided central midfield player, a Xhaka replacement, if you will. Still think Xhaka's going to go, just a question of timing for me. So Havertz is an option. We could do that. But what we know about Arteta is he generally likes to keep people in position. So let's say Arsenal were playing week in, week out with Havertz in midfield and they lose Jesus from up front. Knowing Arteta as I do, I think he would almost rather put someone else in that centre forward and keep the consistency and the rhythm of having Havertz in the midfield. If that is the midfield that is working, he'll generally favour making less changes and keeping kind of the functionality of other departments. So Havertz is an option, but I don't think we'll see it a ton. Then you've got Trossard, who I think is really good at kind of emulating that false nine role that Jesus plays. And then you've got the two centre-forwards in the squad, the kind of more conventional centre-forwards in the squad, Eddie Nketiah and Flo Balogun. What is going to happen with those two? I think it's so fascinating. You've got two young strikers, two academy products, the same agent. I think that's such an interesting part of it. You can't pull the wool over one player's eyes because they're both going to know what Arsenal's plan is for the other, because it's the same agent sitting in on those meetings, on those conversations with Arteta and Edu. The indications have been that Balogun will be sold. David Ornstein reported that, in the second half of last season. I'm inclined to believe it. David's written it, and I think it comes from, it'll be extremely well sourced. And I get it. Balogun seems like a man in a bit of a hurry. He has shown that international level, choosing America and making his debut, scoring his first goal already. He's playing first team football in France. I don't think he's going to want to go and be a sub somewhere else. I think he's going to want to carry on developing. And Arsenal could get some decent money for him now. I mean, he's very, hot prospect. What I want to see from Arsenal is if they do let him go, how do we protect ourselves? How do we future-proof ourselves? I think for me, you look at the kind of deal that Chelsea did for Tammy Abraham. He went to Serie A, but they got a buyback clause in there. And I think we've got to do the same with Balogun. We've got to put a buyback clause in, which I think foreign clubs will be more amenable to. Maybe a sell-on clause as well. I almost wouldn't mind taking a lower fee if we have those assurances regarding the future, because what will be most painful is if we sell him and he explodes and it looks like the wrong decision. Let's give Arsenal power in that situation. And then you've got Eddie Nketiah, which I think it's just a fascinating one. I like Eddie as a player. I think he really impressed when Jesus was first injured. Then he began to fade, and we saw Trossard come in and the team looked much better with Trossard there. And that makes me wonder, kind of, what are Eddie's opportunities next season? If Jesus isn't playing through the middle, well, you've got Trossard or you've got Havertz. I'd say both those players are kind of more suitable for the kind of false nine work that Arteta seems to want his centre forward to do. Eddie, he's done bits and pieces of it. He's worked very, very hard in games, but he's at his best as a penalty box player. So then it becomes a question of what is his role in the squad? Well, we live in a 5 subs era. He would be incredibly valuable if he was a player who could come off the bench and score. When Arsenal want to change it, when they want to add a second striker, when they want to increase their penalty box threat, I think that's where Eddie could really come into his own. But so far, he's not really shown a capacity to do that. Most of his goals come from starts. I think that's got to be a big focus for him, because there are minutes there to be had, especially as a sub. He's got to show that he can impact games from the substitutes bench. I think that could be his role. Is he going to be happy with that? Possibly not. Is there going to be interest from Premier League clubs? There has been some talk. If Arsenal get an offer for Eddie Nketiah, I think they should seriously consider taking it, even if they move Balogun on as well. You could keep either, but you could move on both and bring in a centre-forward who is going to have immediate impact, add something different, be a threat from the bench. I don't know who that might be. Obviously, Ivan Toney would be a great shout, but he's suspended for the first half of the season. Maybe this is one where Arsenal kind of keep their powder dry. They stick with the current option in Eddie and maybe revisit it in January. Give Eddie the first half of the season to really show what he can do. Can he cut it in the Champions League if required? Can he prove he can make an impact off the bench? And then there's another player who there's another couple of players actually. Fabio Vieira could be an option on the right-hand side, but I'm not convinced by that personally. The one I was going to say, who I consider a bit of a wild card in this question of the attack, is Emile Smith-Rowe. What is he going to be? He said he doesn't even know yet. He needs to go back and talk to Arteta. They're going to have that chat in pre-season. Thus far, he's not really had an indication about where the manager sees him, what his position is. Could it be the left 8? Could it be the right 8? Could it be left wing? I'm less and less convinced about that. I just think he's so different stylistically to what Gabriel Martinelli offers. Could it be another option as a number 9? We saw him as a false 9 quite early on in Arteta's reign against Villarreal, I believe it was. Could we see that again? I hope Arteta's got an answer to that question of where Smith-Rowe is going to be used, because if not, I do slightly fear for him. He's having a decent time at the under-21 tournament this summer. England through to the semi-finals there, so he came off the bench in the quarter-final win against France. Let's hope Arteta's got a clear plan for this player, because the talent is enormous. So will Arsenal buy? We've talked about Balogun probably will be sold. Eddie could be sold if there's an offer. Looks like Reece Nelson will stay. Looks like Smith-Rowe will stay. Looks like Bukayo Saka will stay. And I reckon we'll probably hang on to Martinelli as well. And Gabriel Jesus. So will Arsenal buy? I think if you'd asked them in January when they bought Trossard, will you go again for a winger in the summer? I think they probably would have said yes. But I think Trossard has so exceeded expectations, and Reece Nelson's really pleased Arteta with what he's contributed. I'm not so sure. I think Havertz coming in as a midfield player, but who gives you an alternative option in one of those attacking lanes. You have got Vieira as well if you wish to use him in that way. Yeah, I'm not sure that we will see an attacking player come in unless there's more than one departure. So I think Balogun will go. If he was joined by an Eddie, and although it's contrary to our current understanding, maybe a Smith-Rowe or something like that, then obviously Arsenal would go out and replace them. But I think unless the right player comes up, I think they'll bide their time with the attack and maybe wait for January. But let's see. There's room in the squad, I think, maybe for one more, but it's got to be the right type. And when I list the players like that, for me, the type is someone who's really impactful as a substitute. I think that would be really, really valuable, because this is a 90-minute game where game state changes and sometimes you just need something different from the substitutes bench. I'm not sure Eddie's proven he can be that. So who could? And I'm intrigued to find out. Maybe someone will step up. Maybe Eddie will step up. Maybe Smith-Rowe will return to being an excellent sub as he was last season. Not last season, the season before. You know the one I mean. The one where he actually played. Cool. 14 minutes. Better draw a line under this, guys. I've got to figure out how green screen works. Speak to you all soon. Please do like and subscribe. And yeah, could be a very exciting week for Arsenal. Bye-bye.